Welcome to another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show. Ian Cameron, Connor Mack, right here on Pub Sports Radio, Monday, December 19th, ready to break it down. It's kind of like mid-major Monday here in college basketball. There's a bunch of games, but a lot of them are the mid-major conferences, which I got no problem with. I love mid-major basketball. I know Connor does as well. Some of the best opportunities are betting some of these smaller mid-major conferences. We got some Metro Atlantic teams, some Colonial teams. We've got some Summit League games tonight, Summit League teams. You've got a bunch on the Big West. I mean, a lot of mid-major stuff tonight. So we'll break it all down. We've still got 8 marquee games that we've isolated to begin. And we'll start with St. Bonaventure and Siena. This is an upstate New York battle. 2 teams in the western part of the state of New York. We've got St. Bonaventure 2-point road favorites in this one. The total 131.5 in this game. I like the home underdog here, honestly. I don't really want to trust St. Bonaventure on the road. They have had 2 true road games this year. They lost both of them, actually, outright as favorites against Canisius, 84-80 in overtime, and then 83-66 lost to Buffalo. It's funny because they lost to 2 teams that are in this little regional rivalry type of deal with St. Bonaventure. So they haven't fared well. I think Siena is going to be a bet-on team in Metro Atlantic play this year. Carmen Massarello, the coach there, doing a nice job. They're coming off 2 losses in a row, so not exactly in great form. But Delaware's an improving team. I like the Blue Hens. I think they're going to be good. We know Jameer Nelson Jr. plays for that team. Great player, good offensive team. Georgetown, obviously Georgetown's not been great at times this year, but still Siena, is still a little outclassed in terms of level of recruit and athlete compared to a team like that out of the Big East. I think coming back home, they'll play better. And we've seen Siena so far this year win 2 of their 3 home games. The St. Bonaventure Bonnies are a team that struggled to shoot the ball consistently as well, something that would concern me a little bit here going into this game. And rightly, like I said, their track record on the road, I don't trust. They didn't play well at all against Florida Gulf Coast at home. That very much disappointed me the way they played on Friday night. 71-58 loss at home to Florida Gulf. So I like Siena here, +2 in this one. What do you think here, Connor Mack?
I don't want anything with this game. I don't want St. Bonaventure on the road. And people are liking Bonaventure here. Money's kind of on them, seems like all day since the beginning.
Nope,
I just don't trust them on the road really at all, and they haven't looked good lately. I mean, I think they've lost 4 or 5 or something like that. They did beat Cleveland State, I remember, at home, but lost in between. I like Siena a little bit. I just this game, there's other games today to bet. I think Siena at home, this is a decent spot. They kind of screwed me in that Georgetown game. But yeah, tough one because I just can't lay points with St. Bonaventure. I guess if I had to free bet here, I'd bet them, and I'd kind of lean under. We do have a low total. These teams still can struggle to score, but at times they haven't been great defensively, depending on where they've been at home or on the road. So just a tough one here that I'm going to lay off.
All right, we got a couple. This is actually a Metro Atlantic Conference game here. Next up, Manhattan and Marist. We've got Marist here, the Red Foxes, 4-point home favorites in this game. The total 131.5 across the board in this one. If you look at Manhattan, they've been all over the place this year. They started off the season, in a world of hurt because the coaching staff basically bailed. But they've rounded into form at least a little bit. Now they got to go on the road. They did have a road win against Army. Northeastern, they lost in overtime, 69-67. They lost to Monmouth, which is a horrible loss because Monmouth's completely rebuilding. They got crushed by Providence on the road. But they did bounce back. Not bounce back. They lost to Bryant, but they were competitive in defeat, 104-97. They lost to Central Connecticut, 78-67 in their last game. Their defense has fallen apart, Manhattan, these last 3 games. That's the thing that I've noticed about them going into this matchup here tonight against Marist. And then on the flip side, you've got the Marist Red Foxes, who on the offensive end, they're just as wretched as Manhattan has been defensively. So something's got to give here. The woeful offense of Marist, the wretched defense of Manhattan. Someone's going to have to win out that matchup here tonight between these 2 teams. You start to look at the way Marist has played on this home floor. They beat American by 4. They lost as favorites to Binghamton by 3 on their home floor. They lose to Princeton by 7 at home. The Columbia win was pretty good, 52-39. Very low scoring, though. They won by 13. This is one of those games where I think it's going to be a tight one. I'd look toward probably taking the points before laying them here in this game. The two meetings last year, both teams won on their home court. But I think Manhattan, after a rough start, starting to play at least a little bit more competitive in spots. And I just don't love laying 4 with an offense that flat out can go into massive scoring droughts like Marist. So, not a great game, not a strong opinion, but I'd lean to the points with the Jaspers, especially when I know historically the Metro Atlantic, it's been a dog-heavy conference. It really has been, especially in these conference games. So it would be Manhattan if I were to bet something here. What do you think, Conor?
Yeah, I lean Manhattan. I don't really trust them, though. They haven't been great defensively. I think Marist is better, but Marist plays in close games and they're low scoring. So, I mean, if you're looking at the total here, I could only be on the under. And you go through both these teams, whether it's their tempo, assist to turnover ratio, everything is just horrible. Fast break points, 349. They're just not good. So if I were looking at the total here, I'd be on the under. I'd lean that way. But another one I'm not involved with.
All right, Delaware and Rider. Riders on the storm. I always love doing that when we're talking a Rider game. All right, we got Rider here. 2-point home favorites, 141.5 the total in this one. Delaware is a team I think is, like I said, they're undervalued right now because they didn't get off to a good start to the season. I think they're honestly worth a look here as underdogs against this Rider Bronx team. I like the Metro Atlantic in terms of this conference and handicapping it, but let's be honest, this conference is one of the weakest conferences in college basketball. I mean, their teams are probably weaker collectively than teams from other conferences, and I think you're going to see that play out here in this game. I mean, you look at their schedule so far, Rider. Who have they beaten? They beat New Jersey 87-50 in their first game, a Division III team. They got crushed by 10 by Stetson. They lost as favorites to Central Arkansas, destroyed by Rutgers. They beat Monmouth. Everybody's beating Monmouth. They did beat 68-65 Mount St. Mary's. That's a decent win. And Stonehill, okay, they won and covered, but Stonehill's a newbie to Division I basketball. Delaware's a good basketball team, and I've cashed a couple tickets with them of late. I took them against Davidson. They won outright as dogs. I took them again against Princeton on this show, remember. I was on Delaware Friday night at Princeton. 7-point dogs. They won outright. In that game, 76-69. They're playing better basketball here. I know Rider 2-0 at home, but they played nobody, in these home games. New Jersey on the one home game and Monmouth. Delaware's way better than both of these teams. I know the money's going on Rider, and I know it's one of those, deals where it seems like the tickets are on Delaware and the money's coming in on Rider. That some people are worried about that. I'm never as much worried about that. I still think the wrong team's favored here. I like the Blue Hens. I like Delaware +2. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I think it's Delaware here. You take the 2. I'd even take a money line. The only issue is, though, the road. The win just lately, Princeton was good by 7. They got beat up at Penn, and we've seen Penn, though, a pretty good team. But home wins, they've been solid, whether it's Davidson, Siena, they beat them by 9. You mentioned it. It's Jameer Nelson Jr. And on the other side, though, it's Murray. It's kind of scoring point guards, these two teams. They both average 20. But in the end, I think Delaware's a little bit better team. And catching 2, I just side with them. And total-wise, I agree. This, to me, it was too high at 144.5. I know it's down to 142, but this would be under nothing here. Under.
All right, we've got next up here, it is Hofstra and South Florida. Interesting non-conference matchup here. We've got the South Florida Bulls 2-point home favorites, 137 the total in this game. Hofstra is definitely, I think, a solid basketball team this year. They always have been. They've always been one of the better teams in their conference. They have lost 3 in a row against George Mason, Purdue, and UMass, the last one being 71-56. We'll see how they fare here in this matchup. South Florida was involved in a rock fight of a game the other night against Dartmouth University, 59-55, 12.5-point favorites, and they barely get the win in that game. One thing to point out about South Florida, though, and Conor and I have talked about the Bulls. South Florida's been on this show a lot. We've talked about this team. They've actually improved at the offensive end. For a long time, this team couldn't shoot straight. Terrible offensive team. They're not great by any stretch, but they're definitely better than they were. Hofstra can still struggle defensively. South Florida essentially has been undervalued in terms of their totals because they've been lined in these 120s type of totals for years because they're good defensively and horrible team shooting the basketball. But this year they've improved offensively enough where they've actually turned into an over team. 6-1 to the over, South Florida, in their last 7 games. Hofstra's going to play with some pace. That's the way they'd play under Speedy Claxton. They've still got a shaky defense. They've given up 70 plus, 80 plus in 2 of the last 3 games, 70 plus in 4 straight. I think we can get this game over. I really do. I think we can get over 137. Again, the only reason this total's this low in a Hofstra game because South Florida's involved, but South Florida's been clearing these totals in the 130s lately because they're not that same putrid, outright horrendous offensive team they've been in years past. So that's what I'm going to look at here is the total. I think we can get over 137. What do you think here, C-Mac?
I think this game has one key here. It's Estrada for Hofstra. Just too big. He's their best player, scores 20. He's been their best player the last couple of years. I mean, he's a guy who can drop 30 on a given night. Yep. With him being out the last 2 or 3 games, 2.5 games, I guess, he went out against George Mason. They just got ripped. Of course, Purdue, they were probably going to lose anyways. Yep. They got beat up by Massachusetts. So if he's in, they got a shot, But if he's out, I think they go down again. They're just not good enough defensively, even against South Florida team. We know you mentioned not great offensively, but a little bit better. And these totals have been too low, and they've just trickled over. Hey, I've known it right in the beginning of the year. I had to get off, stay away from the total, or go over, like you mentioned. So he's the key. If he's in, and how much is he going to be too? 100%, because he's a big question mark. So it's all about him, I think, in this game.
And it's going to be a game time decision, it looks like. And again, averaging 21 points per game for Hofstra, no doubt, huge component of that basketball team. I have a feeling he's going to play if you ask me, but I don't know for sure. It'll be a game time decision. If he doesn't play, that's probably going to mean South Florida is going to win this game. And I think the betting markets just sense maybe he won't play, and that's why the money's come in on South Florida. They opened a 1.5 point favorite up to 2 now. In this one at home against Hofstra. All right, we've got Charleston and Coastal Carolina. Next up, it is Charleston, 8-point road favorites in this game, 150.5, 151 the total between these 2 teams. The total going up makes perfect sense to me. That's an obvious, opinion. Look for me in this game is to expect points and more points. You've got certainly a Charleston team that tempo-wise, 66th in the country, play extremely fast, very efficient on offense, 33rd in the country. And I think the thing that they could really thrive with here is their 2-point offense is excellent, and Coastal struggles to defend, around the rim. And Coastal Carolina will push the basketball a little bit. They're not as good offensively as Charleston, but definitely capable, and they will play with pace. The Chanticleers as well. Charleston, what a start to the year, 11-1. You can quibble about the schedule a little bit, but still, I mean, they've had some nice results. Davidson, they beat Colorado State as well, who just beat St. Mary's last night. They beat Virginia Tech. Like, they actually have some nice wins on their resume, this Charleston team. They're laying a big number here on the road. You're not getting a great value by any stretch of the imagination with them, but I'm definitely not looking to step in front of the Charleston Cougars here in this one. They've played some really good ball, and as I said, I would agree with the total move going up here. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, the total is going up, and Coastal can go over, but we know Charleston, they've been under. It just lately hasn't been the same since it came out the first 3 or 4 games. They're scoring a ton. They've had these well up to 160, higher, the 150s, and I think they've gone over 7 or 8 in a row. Who knows about tonight? I'm not going to mess with the total in this one. They've had a couple road games. They did beat Citadel, not very good, by 22. This one's difficult. I just can't. It's not enough for Coastal for me, even though I think they could play well at home and maybe cover this number. I just don't love it. But teams like this, and there's not much, all these games today we're talking about, there's no big schools playing. And even there, these kids are all leaving. They're all, there's nobody's probably going to be at these fucking games, hundreds of people in these small arenas. So I don't know. I can't get there with Coastal.
All right, we go to South Dakota State and Oral Roberts. Speaking of overs, I like this one. This way you've got Oral Roberts, 9-point home favorites, 158. Should be a shootout. It really should. These are 2 teams that are consistently good offensively, There's no question about that. You look at, obviously, Oral Roberts. Max Asmus has been there forever. Continues to be, the guy that is the leader of this team. Obviously, no question about that. But don't sleep on some of the guys they brought in the transfer portal. Vanover from Arkansas, Trey Phipps from Oklahoma, and some other guys. Like, they actually have more than just Max Asmus this year here on this Oral Roberts Golden Eagles team. I mean, they're just absolutely loaded offensively. This has also been, a situation where these two teams have played each other before in the past. It's been kind of high scoring. South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, are not necessarily nearly as good offensively this year as they've been in the past, but they're still more than plenty good enough. Zeke Mayo leading the way for them. And I think what you look at, too, is South Dakota State has had turnover issues where really Oral Roberts could really, really have some issues, with that. If you turn the ball over against Oral Roberts, you're in some big-time trouble. And South Dakota State has had way too many turnovers in some of their games this year. So that's actually, I lean to South Dakota State because it's a lot of points. But Oral Roberts has been pretty good at home until the last game. Maybe they fell asleep against Missouri State, but their last home game, they were up big in that game, and then they kind of fell asleep in the second half, and they did not get the point spread cover in that game as a result. So I'm off the side. I'm just going to bank on enough points that we get this game into the 160s. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Got to hit up the chat real quick. Shout out to the chat, as always. Hit the like button. You guys know the deal. Star Child, our guy Tease over here. Nasty Nate. Richie Vegas, Sharon, what's up, my man? Coin, Mike M, Ramon Scott, good to see you up in here. Jefferson C, JW, glad you can join us. Tori, Coker. I want the points here. Oral Roberts has played okay at home. I know they just beat, Liberty and covered, but I think this is a stretch. I thought it was a stretch when I saw it last night at 10. It's come down to 9. They might be a little bit better offensively, which I think they are. You mentioned Vanover's been good, 12 and 6. With his rebounds coming from Arkansas. Zeke Mayo, their scoring isn't what it used to be. This game last year was like 100 to something like 104, 102 or something crazy like that. They dealt with some injuries and they haven't been as good on the road, the Jackrabbits. I just think this is just a stretch here, and I don't trust Oral Roberts' defense to do the number here. So even at 9, South Dakota State, I got to take the points.
All right. This one's a great one to talk about next up. Weber State, Utah State, because I've got a theory here. Utah State, 16.5, 17-point home favorites, 142 the total in this game. Obviously, it's an in-state game, Weber State and Utah State here. So it should be fascinating here to see how this one goes between these two teams. But Weber State might have shown me a bet-on sign in their last game against Cal Poly, because I lost with Cal Poly. I just remember that was Friday night. We were on this show. We said Cal Poly's laying just such a short number against Weber State, and Weber State went in there and drilled them like it was not even a game. It was non-competitive, 74-45. And we know what the Weber State Wildcats, they've had some good teams in the past. Obviously, they got off to a brutal start this year. They had lost, 6 of their first 7 games. But that was a solid Cal Poly team, and they went in there and destroyed them. That might be a sign that maybe this team is ready here to maybe be a bet-on team, undervalued, ready to turn a corner after a bad start to the season. And as much as Utah State's been good, I mean, they had a win against Loyola Marymount on a neutral. They went to San Francisco. They beat the Dons. They won and covered at home against Oral Roberts. They beat San Diego in overtime. They beat Santa Clara, who's a pretty solid team. Won and covered against Bradley, won and covered against Utah Valley in their first game of the year. Lots to like with Utah State. They're a solid team. There's no question. Remember, the last time they faced a team in the state, Utah Tech, they're 18.5-point favorites December 1st. They won that game only by 5 points. It was a competitive game. I'm going to take Weber here, plus the points, and just bank on maybe that they're ready to turn a corner, be a little bit better. And there are some injuries for Utah State. Rylan Jones is questionable with a concussion going into this game for them. Taylor Funk as well. Taylor Funk's the big one. Taylor Funk's averaging 16.2 points per game this season for Utah State. He's questionable. I like this spot here. I like that Weber State showed me a sign in the last game, Cal Poly. maybe a sign that they're ready to be a bet on team now, maybe a little undervalued. They had a rotten start. They coming off their best game of the year, maybe a chance for them to get on a little bit of a run and maybe be a little bit undervalued in the betting market. So I'm going to take the 16.5, 17 points here with Weber State. What do you think here, C-Mac?
I don't know. I got to see a little bit more of it. This is a shit ton of points, like you mentioned, and Utah State's dealing with some injuries. It's just they hadn't done anything all year. That game was strange. It was like, what the hell? 74-45. It was wild. But yeah, you know what I look to here in this game? It hasn't moved, but Utah State, even playing Weber State and dealing with the injuries, I'd still lean over in this game. I haven't bet either of them, took the points or the over, but that's where I look. I think 143 with Utah State is just too low. I think they get to the 80s, and Weber could get mid-60s and get over.
All right, there we go. Liken to the over here with Weber State and Utah State for Conor Mack. All right, we've got UT Arlington and San Francisco here. Next game on the slate. We've got San Francisco 14.5-point home favorites in this game. Total 137.5 across the board here in this one. I mean, Arlington is definitely one of those teams that they've gotten off to a pretty rough start, 4-7. Overall, 0-2 straight up on the road. They did cover, though, in the 2 road games. LSU, 18.5-point dogs. They lost 63-59 in that game. And I think there was another game that early in the year they were on the road, and they actually did get it was at Oklahoma State, 20.5-point dogs. They lost by 11. I think this might be a spot to take the dog here, honestly. I know Arlington, they are absolutely pathetic offensively. Can't shoot. I mean, 332 in the country in field goal percentage, but they can D up. They can play some defense. I mean, their defense is not bad. 62.5 points per game, 39.4% shooting allowed in terms of the field goal percentage. Good numbers on the defensive end. Is this potentially for San Francisco? If you look at their schedule, they played UNLV, big time win on the road, as 6.5-point dogs. Yeah, 75-73. Now you come home, you play Arlington. You're going on the road to face Cal. I know the Golden Bears stink this year, but you're still going on the road, play a Pac-12 team. That may be more of a game that gets you going than, say, this game in a flat spot on a Monday night at home against UT Arlington. I think the points might be worth a look here with the Mavericks, with UTA. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, Mike M., I think it's the under in this game. I think one thing Arlington can do is play some defense. And if they can hit some shots, they will cover. It's just a problem they can't. It was tough because I had them against Texas State. They lost by 6 out of 5. They were at home. But I saw some of that game where they were home where there was North Texas. North Texas seems to be getting healthy and taking care of business, as we've seen the last week or two. The 4-point loss, LSU, like you mentioned. I think, San Francisco off the big win against UNLV. Maybe a little bit sleepy. I kind of like first half here. With Arlington, you're getting 8 where their defense comes to play early and can hang around. So I'm looking first half. I don't know if I do a split here like you, and I like the under. So I might have a couple bets in this game in the end.
All right, let's go to the games that we have not talked about yet that any of us like from a betting perspective. As always at this point of the show, and get your Q&A questions ready. We're going to get right to those in just a second. Any games, Conor, we did not talk about yet that you like?
No, there was none on the extra board that that I really liked. I kind of looked at Maine. I don't want Maine, so nothing for me. What about you?
Only a couple. Actually, you know what? There's not a lot that we haven't talked about already that I'm betting tonight on this card. Kind of like North Dakota plus 8.5 against St. Thomas. I just don't like St. Thomas laying those kind of points. They're betting the hell out of Illinois State. I'm on Chicago State. Plus 7. I'm just riding Chicago State again. I mean, they just covering machines all of a sudden. Chicago State. I get it. Illinois State is probably better than them, but it's still an in-state game. I think you're going to get pretty solid effort, all things considered here from Chicago State. I like that they're actually playing better at both ends of the floor. So there's a couple on the main board that we didn't talk about that I like. What else? Denver taking the money against Omaha. I agree with that. I think Denver can win on the road there against Omaha. And then there's a few on the added board. I like Grambling State. I like Grambling State getting points. They've been a good dog at times this year. Grambling State plus 12 against Liberty. I'm not going to bank on Liberty playing as well as they did against Bryant. I think that's maybe the best game Liberty's played all year. I don't like betting on teams after a perfect performance. I think Grambling is worth a look in that game against Liberty tonight. And then a couple others I like Stonehill plus 17 against Bradley. I don't like laying that many with Bradley. Stonehill's been competitive at times as double-digit dogs, so I like Stonehill there against Bradley. And I like the over in the Sacred Heart St. Joseph's game, 150 up to 152. I think you'll see points scored in that game. I lean over too. With any Stonehill game, Starchild, I lean over the total. Because Stonehill will push pace, and it's one of those games Bradley wants to slow down, Stonehill wants to speed up. So if I like Stonehill, I'm going to lean over in that game. So there you go. That's all else that I liked.
One game I'll touch on. Somebody just put it in the chat. I looked at this game a bunch. The South Dakota UMKC. The line flipped, and then now looks like Casey's taking some money. It's basically 1.5 everywhere. I lean them at home. I just don't love it. It's already moved early, but it's just how you look at it, how you gamble here. If that bothers you or not, some of these early moves, because I just think they go to it, and then it can get corrected. And I think that's getting corrected a little bit. So I like UMKC a little bit at home.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. Yeah, plus 1.5 there in that one. So that now Q&A time. Arkansas State. Let me just see where that one is. Yeah, we didn't talk about Arkansas State, Alabama State. I agree with the under move there. It should be pretty much a lower scoring game. Arkansas State's not a bad defensive team. I don't trust Alabama State to light it up against them. So I'm with you there, liking under the total. Tease liking the Grambling State Liberty first half under in that game, and St. Thomas minus 4.5 in the first half. I wish you luck with the first half, maybe because I kind of like North Dakota. I did bet small North Dakota full game, but maybe St. Thomas first half and North Dakota full game. In that game, we could get both to hit in that game, Tease. Hope you're doing well. It's good to see Tease in the chat. Cashville Rican, thoughts on Idaho money line against Northridge. Idaho is one of those teams that on the road, I don't necessarily trust them. CS Northridge, I've tried to take CS Northridge a couple times. I like taking them as a dog. And I did against Fresno. Boise State, they covered as dogs. They've been a very good underdog team this year, and they're not a bad basketball team. But at the same point in time, you're talking about now a price range where you've got to lay 4.5 with Northridge. And while they've been competitive, they've still only won 2 games on the year. You're going to basically be asking them now to try to win by margin here against Idaho. I think that's tricky. And look, the last time we saw Idaho on the road, Pacific is better than Northridge. They won that game outright, 84-81. So I think Idaho here might be worth a look. Yeah, Hofstra's best player is we talked about it, Estrada for them. He's game time decision, Andrew, for Hofstra. So keep an eye on that in that game. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, that's it. There you go, Billy. He likes New Hampshire.
Yeah, I have nothing on that. New Hampshire and Holy Cross in that game. Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think New Hampshire's better. Am I ready to lay those points with them? Not so much. We're hoping like hell for a little bit of a fourth quarter surge here from UConn in this bowl game. They're not going away after they got the shit kicked out of them in the first half. But they're making a little rally here, mounting a little comeback against Marshall. It's 28-14 now in the fourth quarter. But time's running out. There's only 9 minutes, and it looks like they got to punt the ball back to Marshall now. Just a moment ago. So we've got our fingers crossed as we're on plus 12.5 there with UConn in that bowl game. All right, great stuff. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out. Best bets coming up right after we hear from Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101. When you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke, Southtown 101. Manscaped.com, promo code PubSports. 20% off and free shipping of anything on the site, manscaped.com with promo code PubSports. I'll tell you this right now. It's been a great season in football for UConn, but if they're going to take the next step, Zion Turner's got to get better as a pocket passer. You can't go 9 for 25 throwing the football. Like he has today in this bowl game against Marshall. So they're doing a lot of good things. They're building something. Their run game is pretty solid, but they do need better quarterback play if they're going to improve on the 6-6 they had this year.
Yeah, and they, it was a thought with me. They just were good away from home. Yeah. They should be up for this bowl game like we talked about. Hey, I bet you Marshall, we always talk about this, in games. The playbook shrinks here with this lead Marshall has, so we can see a quick 3-and-out and a backdoor swing in here.
Oh, yeah, there's still time left. There's still 9.5 minutes left in this bowl game, so plenty. And look, 28-0, like they were totally dead, UConn, and now all of a sudden, if you got either side of this game from a point spread standpoint, you are on the edge of your seat here in the final 9 minutes of this bowl game. All right, best bets here to wrap up this edition of College Basketball Net Profit. Conor Mack, what do you got for best bet?
Yeah, I'll give you two that I bet. I took the Arlington San Fran under 137, and I'm taking South Dakota State +9. I still think 9's good enough there. I think they hang around Oral Roberts.
All right, there we go. Good stuff from Conor Mack. There's a lot I like here on this card. I'll be quite honest with you. Best bet for this card, I'm going to go with UT Arlington. I really am. I like this situation here. I'm going to take them plus the 14.5 against San Francisco. Great spot for them to be competitive. San Francisco coming off the big road win. So I definitely like that one. And hell, I'm going to go with a total as well. I'm going to go with that South Dakota State Oral Bob over 158. I think there's going to be a lot of points in that game. So let's give you a double dose of best bets here, which I don't do often. UT Arlington plus 14.5 against San Francisco, and South Dakota State Oral Roberts over 158. For best bets here for this Monday night. All right, that'll wrap up this edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show. Hit the like button on the way out. We're not done yet, Conor and I. Conor is hosting Monday Night Football, filling in for Jimmy the Bag tonight, Rams and Packers, and I will be joining him for the first half of that game. So make sure you tune in tonight. Rams-Packers Monday Night Football live stream.
Yeah, join us. Monday Night Football, Rams-Packers, like you mentioned. And shout out to the chat, everyone up in here. Join us. Hit me up. Anybody that wants to come on. Bet some football live and have a little fun. Have some drinks. Let's get it done.
Exactly. It's a Monday night tradition. And even though Conor's hosting, not Jimmy, I'm still in as always. Monday night, first half. Bobano with you on the Monday Night Bet stream tonight. So looking forward to that. We'll see you then. For Conor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Monday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you later for the NFL Live Bet stream. And we'll see you again tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of College Basketball Net Profit right here on Pub Sports Radio.